Okay, so I do want to take a look at this video, right? Not that one. This one right here, but seeing this, seeing Zenless Zone Zero right now, there are 6,000 people playing. Marathon only has 2.8K people playing. When a gacha game that is free to play is beating Marathon, yikes, dude. That's wild to see that. But apparently, our friend Chopper here has apparently saying that it's not looking very good or so for Marathon. I think, if I remember correctly, I think the new update is out for Marathon, but I'm not too sure. But I want to take a look at it and see what's been happening. This was posted 6 days ago, so I'm kind of curious to see what this is all about. It can't get any worse, right? There's no way it can get worse, right? Question mark. Let's find out.
Every single time I think I'm done talking about Marathon, something happens, something goes down, and it brings me back, and I want to discuss it because my last couple of videos, I had pretty much come to the conclusion that after Marathon Season 1, I was going to be done with the game, right? After they do their first wipe and they reset everybody's vaults and progress and their faction upgrades
That's what
and
I
so
thought
on,
too.
that I was pretty much done and satisfied with my playtime. And that was the case. I hadn't played Marathon for quite a number of weeks after the reset or like leading up to that. It was pretty much after I defeated the compiler for the first time that I kind of realized that, yeah, I've had my fill, and unless there is new content to experience, like, I don't need to play this game anymore. So I was pretty much done in the weeks leading up to the end of Season 1, and then the wipe came, everything happened, they reset the vaults, progression, everything, and I just hadn't
I
touched the
see.
game for at least a couple of weeks. But then I started hearing what was going on at Bungie. Obviously, if you've been keeping up to date with the
Yes.
Destiny 2 situation, I
Yes.
don't know anybody who's not heard about what's going on, but that game is ending, and it's also kind of related to what the future of Marathon is going to end up looking like, as there is going to be no more D2 content. It puts Marathon in a really precarious
won't.
position. And not to mention, since my last two videos on the subject, Marathon tried a free weekend and then even a discounted rate to purchase the game for people who
Really? They put Marathon on discount? God damn, dude. That I know about the weekend thing, but like they put it on discount too? Damn, dude. I know some people in the comment section said you couldn't there's literally people in the comment section on my video said you couldn't pay me enough to freaking play Marathon.
were interested after that weekend playtest, and we'll talk about the results of that experiment in a little bit. But I felt like in order to talk about all of this, I needed to actually play Season 2 a little bit for myself. So over the past couple days, I did decide to jump back on and start playing, and I had noticed that quite a lot had actually changed. So first and foremost, they did add a brand new runner, and this one is named Sentinel. To tell you the truth, though, I've been playing Marathon for maybe the last 4 or 5 days at the time of me making this video, and I don't think that I have ran into the new character a single time in any of my games. I have legitimately
Oh, that's pretty bad. Because you expect when a new character comes in, especially because Marvel Rivals is the best example, right? A new character comes in, everybody wants to play the character. Same thing with Apex Legends. New character comes in, everybody wants to play. Everybody wants to play the Apex character. A new skin just dropped in Call of Duty. They all buy it. They're all buying the skin or so specifically for that character.
never seen him in a lobby yet. I don't know if he's just not very good or people don't like playing him or they're happy to stick to their mains. I don't really know what the situation is. But there's a whole new character in the game that I see virtually none of. So, okay, there's that. I mean, in terms of new content, that's not exactly their best example. There is also a nighttime version of Dire Marsh, which is actually a new map. Originally, I was skeptical about this. I was like, oh, it's just Dire Marsh, but with a nighttime background and skybox instead. Not really the case. It actually is a very different map, and there is new content on here. So to explain nighttime Dire Marsh, imagine the original map. However, this time you can kill UESC and collect these little keys, right? You can stack these things and do a variety of tasks or objectives around the map with them. They can let you into certain areas or get you, otherwise inaccessible loot. But one of the coolest things that this system does is allow you to go into the upper sections of Complex. And this is the stuff that I actually kind of liked. And as I was playing it, it kind of made me think that it's more reminiscent of the original vision of this game. In my last video, I had talked about what Marathon was originally supposed to be in early development, and it kind of clicked that the thing that I'm playing here in Dire Marsh Nighttime is so much closer to what they were originally planning. You know, it's not really heavy on the extraction stuff anymore. In fact, Dire Marsh Night is one of the least oppressive PvP maps because they give you so many opportunities to be able to exfil, and the PvP is way less brutal just because there isn't as much pressure this time.
Are they trying to pivot more to PvE for this game? Is that what they're trying to do? I forgot what the original vision, what the of what Marathon was supposed to be. I don't really quite remember. It's been a while since I looked into that information.
You can run into people in nighttime Dire Marsh, but for the most part, there's so many other opportunities to just be doing your own thing that you may not even encounter or be forced to encounter as many players. But the nighttime Dire Marsh section has the stuff that I really like, where you can access.
Wow, did they find out that catering to like the hardcore player doesn't really bring in the big monies? Surprise Pikachu face? Oh my god. Wow. Everybody knows that like when it comes to gaming in general, you want to at least get some of those like specific casual people into like take for the example, right? Duck Off. You know, Duck Off was that one PvE you play. It's an extraction shooter, but it's not like your typical extraction shooter. You play as a duck and you play it from top view. It's PvE mostly, and you know, it grabbed a good chunk of audiences at the end of the day. While this game specifically catered the more hardcore. I'm like Arc Raiders. Arc Raiders was mostly focusing on PvE a lot more. Yeah, you can have the PvP part, but when you do more PvP part, you start playing more PvP lobbies for that specific tendency, you know? While the people who mostly did PvE just stick to the PvE lobbies the most, you know? While Marathon was the complete opposite. You know, they wanted to cater more to the hardcore aspect of the extraction shooter. But I think, but like at that point, right, you're competing against Tarkov. Because I know Tarkov is a very hardcore, like super realistic hardcore extraction shooter game. And to be honest, for you to be competing against Tarkov, I don't think those people who put many thousands of hours in Tarkov are going to leave and play Marathon. Because the only people who are going to actually play this kind of game are maybe people who want to take a look at it, who are interested in it, or people who, well, I know some Destiny players are playing this. Not a lot, not a lot. There are some Destiny players playing it.
This secret area by getting these keys, and then you can explore in here, find different locked doors that you can open by shooting these buttons. You can even do an entire like mini boss fight, and there's also like secret numbers that you can find with this special dark sight scope that can give you another additional secret loot room. Now these are the kind of secrets and hidden areas that Marathon was originally planning on focusing on. This is the kind of stuff that the game was supposed to be from the start, and it's what I actually ended up enjoying the most. I do have to honestly say that I was initially unimpressed at the prospects of a nighttime Dire Marsh just because I didn't really care for the map in general, and playing it at nighttime just wasn't as exciting to me. But not only is there these additional secret areas to explore and uncover that just feel like a lot of fun to first encounter, but also there's an entire new enemy type, kind of. There's these anomalous husks that you can find within the lab, and they also do appear in other various like outside areas within Dire Marsh Night, but they're heavily concentrated in the secret laboratory, but they're so cool
I'm not
looking.
gonna lie, when I see this specific gameplay in general, you know what it reminds me of? Destiny. That's what it reminds me of. This reminds me of Destiny than Marathon itself, you know? That's all I gotta say about that. Like it really doesn't even look like they look like the hive. Yeah, they kind of do. They kind of do like they look like the hive, the exploding hives or so, with the blue exploding hives. But you know, they gave the invisibility to them, and they, you know, that's what they do. This is basically is what it is.
And again, it just reinforces
It
this
doesn't even
feeling
give
that
me like,
Marathon has such cool potential and great visuals and awesome enemy design. They just very rarely, if ever, utilize them well. So that's all to say that I was genuinely a lot more impressed than I thought I would be with Dire Marsh Knight.
that right there, that what I just witnessed right there. If you go back or so, watch these guys remind me of the Cabal from Destiny.
Genuinely a lot more impressed than I thought I would be with Dire
Yeah,
Marsh
those guys specifically remind me of the Cabal.
Knight, but that's about where my praise ends because everything else about season 2 is completely unimpressive to me. See, one of the biggest problems that I had, especially with the fact that they were wiping the game, was that there is genuinely no new end game content at all. The only end game to come back besides Nighttime Dire Marsh and all of its little secrets and boss fights and things like that is Cryo Archive and of course the compiler. Now, again, Cryo Archive is a great map and that's awesome, but I've already done the compiler, so I don't need to do that again. I don't know how they thought it was a good idea to introduce a new season, wipe the game, and make everybody's progress completely reset without introducing a new pinnacle to work towards. Now, if you play Marathon or know anything about the compiler, then you know how much of a grind it.
You know what that reminds me of? This right here? This reminds me of the servitor. Those big giant eyeballs that shoot shit at you. I don't know if it's this, I don't know if it's the same one or it's something a little bit different, but they shoot like little missiles or so that they slowly follow you. Or it reminds me of what's it called? The hive, the little hive thing where it pops up or so and it shows a little ball in the inside and shoots little missiles at you that kind of like slowly like target towards you and follow you. That's what it kind of reminds me of. This thing is what it reminds me of the most. I see more Destiny shit in this thing than the Shrieker. Is that what it's called? Okay, yeah. Then that's probably what it is. Maybe Bungie should have stuck with another Destiny at this point. The problem is that they've already stuck to remember, right? When it comes to game dev, well, let me see. Hold on. Give me a second. Let me take a look at this. Technically, game development should be roughly about like what 4 to 6 years, technically, somewhere around there. Let's see how long did this took or so. 7 years? This took you 7 years to make this? Wow. Because like if I remember correctly, like I think game development takes roughly around like what 4 to 6 years, basically. 7 years down the drain, I guess. Yeah, 7 years did go down the drain, to be honest. And this was during the COVID era too, because it began in 2019 apparently. I thought I would have took 3. Well, because like if you look at the animation specifically, you have the Cabal animation in there. You have the Hive, the exploding Hive thing, and then the Shrieker. That's what it kind of reminds me of, Because thank you for my audience to tell me the name, but yeah.
Play Marathon or know anything about the compiler, then you know how much of a grind it is to be able to access this boss fight, which is why they spread it out so that you can
There's a
retain
boss
your
fight in
progress
this game?
towards the compiler between seasons, which I guess I understand, but I feel like with every season, it would make more sense if they had a pinnacle boss or at least an end game area for each season specifically. Season 1 would have been the compiler with Cryo Archive, and then season 2 should have been something else. And now, I understand they keep your progress over the codexes so that you can access the compiler in any season.
Yeah, but we all know for a fact Sony doesn't want that because Sony wants live service. Like I said specifically, if this was a single player game, we would not have this problem. I think it would sell. Like it wouldn't sell crazy, but it would sell though at the end of the day. It would do just fine. If they have all of this like elements of like, the whole scary thing that they have here specifically in the video, the whole like, the running like clanker so that explodes on you, and they have the Cabal cousins or so coming in, for like a story specific type of game, then yeah, this would have been fine. I'm like, in my personal opinion, if you have to put so much heavy lore, like heavy lore in this game specifically, it's kind of like, what are you doing? I'm gonna be honest with you. A lot of the people most of the time are not going to care about the lore, especially in extraction shooter. because they're mostly there for the high rush or so of like getting loot or getting the most expensive loot and try to exfil out, you know, without getting killed and everything like that. And then rinse and repeat kind of type of way. I'm just saying that's what they mostly care about the most. I don't think like only like a few percentage of people are going to care about the lore in the game itself. Because I know I had some friends or so literally back in the old days, they really didn't care about the lore in a lot of these, not these games specifically, but in other specific games that are mostly related to like, you know, FPS style, you know? I don't care what your opinion is.
That doesn't take away the fact that it's still the same end
That's the
game.
problem. Sony of Japan needs to do something, but Sony America, we have to, in order for Sony America to completely die off or so, you need to stop buying their games, stop supporting them in general with all of their live service. Funny thing about it, I think just recently or so, they still want to continue live service games, even though their live service games are not doing very well, but they still want to continue that. Make it make sense to me that they want to do that. I just don't get it.
Content from season one. I have no reason to grind for it because I've honestly already done it and I just don't need to do it again. If there was another version of endgame content, maybe a new map that wasn't Cryo Archive and a new final boss that was something else, then I could maybe see myself realistically grinding towards something like that again. But I just have no desire to play more Cryo and get back to the compiler. I just don't care. Number one, I've already done it, but also Cryo Archive plays as sweaty as ever now, and it's just not really a fun experience anymore. That was probably my biggest disappointment, I would say, with season two, was there's no new endgame content to speak of. And the other thing they did that was quite significant in terms of updates is they added a brand new mode that was a sponsored survival thing. Now, it's interesting because this is actually what I was talking about in my last video on it, I believe, was I was saying how it could be interesting to put this game into a setting where it's more cooperative survival based and you get loot sort of
They
based on.
are, so for those who don't know, Sony Japan and Sony in America are having some kind of civil war within the company itself. They're tired of Sony America, but the problem is Sony America is its own conglomerate monster that they unfortunately that they unleashed. You know, at the end of the day, it's Sony Japan's fault for making a headquarters in America, especially in California. You don't want it in California, but I digress. Oh well, it is what it is at the end of the day. But yeah, that like because Sony of Japan, if I remember correctly, I think they were also surprised that the main character for Ghost of Tsushima was a female and not a continuation of Ghost of Tsushima 2, which is the main character from that game, from the first original one. So even they were surprised themselves. They didn't even know. They were surprised as well. And I bet you that specific franchise didn't sell, like, you know, they didn't make their profit in return. It probably sold, but it didn't make profit though. So, like I said, we all know for a fact that like console players don't play new games at the end of the day. They play repeated old games, but they don't play new games in general. So,
on that. Now, they have that with Dire
they
Marsh
do,
and Perimeter they've done recently. The problem with these modes is that they are so
because I want
half-baked
Japan to be
and they
Japan.
feel like a
I want all the
extremely
Japanese
rough
games to be
first
Japanese
draft
games, you
of a
know?
mode that could actually be exciting in theory. It's just not
I
there at
see.
the moment. It feels like version one of a very rough
Yeah, it
test of what
was.
this could be. Not to say that it's
Because let me remind you or so, during that, I think if I remember correctly, I might be misremembering, so you can quote me or so. That specific era is when they started censoring anime games. They started censoring the Devil May Cry scene with that one girl that that Dante saved and then showed her butt and everything like that. They put like some white streak or something of light on it, and they just started hating on anime games, and so the anime games decided to go other different platforms. They went to Nintendo on the Switch 1, if I remember correctly. I'm trying to remember all of this specifically because it's been a while or so, and that's basically is what happened. Sony of Japan is super angry at Sony America. And yeah, and there's also the press conference that happened with Sony in Japan, that they are actually annoyed of Sony America in general. Like they are. There is a specific conference that you can look it up specifically of them explaining themselves. They censored Nero saving the lady and Dante saving Trish. Yeah. Yep. And that was a big controversy when that happened.
completely terrible or doesn't have potential. It certainly does. It's just not there yet. The pacing can be super awkward and lack tension and be a little bit boring, especially on
So
perimeter.
if you want to
Like,
hate
the whole
Hate
premise
Sony
is that
America,
it's only
not
you
Sony
and your
Japan.
team, right, on sponsored kits. There's no other runners to deal with. So it's a much safer way to play the experience, and it's kind of a PvE light mode. It's kind of what it's getting after. But again, it's the idea is there. It's just very half baked. You can tell much of the mechanics are still built around extraction. You get warnings to find an exfil, even though you literally can't exfil until the very final one. But not to mention, perhaps the biggest issue that this introduced is it completely obliterated the player economy. So there's been a couple things that's happened since I started playing. I missed the first couple weeks of Season 2 when the new update came out, and there's this new system called Cradle where you can add like XP bars to very certain stats that you can have. It's just a more granular way to upgrade your character instead of just doing the static things on your faction tree. You can actually like pick and choose what you want to upgrade a little bit more. It's just based on like overall XP, and it's actually a really cool system. And again, it's more
So
akin.
basically, they're just copying that from our creators. I see. Well, which makes sense, I'm like copy what the successful game is doing,
To what the original vision of Marathon was supposed to be to begin with. So it's a good step in the right direction, I would say. But unfortunately, the XP rates that they buffed in order to make the onboarding experience for new players just a bit easier, and combined with the fact that you could absolutely abuse the sponsored PvE survival modes, the player economy and loot pools got so bad that they had to release a statement saying that they are now nerfing Cradle XP, and they are basically kind of nerfing the loot runs that you could do on these sponsored modes to make it less lucrative, I would say. But all that really did in effect was that the top players who are playing literally every day and already grinded it when it was abusable are so far ahead on the power curve compared to even someone like me who plays it a lot but missed the, abusable XP window, and I didn't level my stuff up in time. So now I'm really behind. But this is all to say, outside of Cradle, that new system, which I do really like, and Nighttime Dire Marsh, which surprised me how well I was going to like it, and it's mostly because of all the new little secret mechanics and cool things that you can do within it. Outside of that, the Season 2 content was immensely disappointing, especially with no new genuine endgame content. It really hurts, and it kind of makes you think, why did they even bother wiping the game to begin with if what you're working towards is ultimately the exact same thing? It's a game that doesn't respect your time in that sense, and that is sort of the issue that I had with it and why I quit at the end of Season 1. But in returning to it in Season 2, nothing's really changed. I don't see myself playing this for very much longer because I have nothing to grind towards ultimately that I haven't done yet. I don't really just want to keep going to the cryo factory, the lose everything factory every single day, and I've already done the compiler, so I don't need to do that again. I just don't really get why they decided to release a new season without new endgame content. Those things just go hand in hand, and it seems just foolish to not have new endgame content to grind for when a new season drops. I don't know. It seems obvious to me, but I guess it isn't. So overall, I'm not terribly impressed with Marathon Season 2. Outside of, a couple little bright spots, it's just not exactly what I think anyone was looking for, and I don't think it's enough to cut the mustard as far as what players are wanting or even to turn this game around. Marathon, over the last couple weeks, tried a free weekend in which you could play the game totally free and then even get it at a discounted rate. And you can see to this day on the Steam player counts, it was the best they've done since the launch of the game, but that didn't last.
I don't know about the launch of the game. I don't know about that one. I don't know about the launch of it. In my personal opinion, it only got like like 1/8 of its player base. Okay, all right. Don't give Marathon benefit of the doubt. All right.
Last very long. Very quickly, the player count rapidly returned to levels where we were at the end of Season 1, which, usually hovers around 9 to 10, maybe 12K players on any given day, which is the core player base now. It seems to have plateaued there, and it's not really going any lower than that. But it's the end of Season 1 numbers, and that's not really moving the needle as far as I'm concerned. The problem is Marathon is having a massive identity crisis because it has no clue clue what it actually wants to be anymore. And
That's
that's
pretty bad,
especially
actually.
apparent with
That's
season two.
actually
Does
pretty
it want to
bad.
be a PvE survival mode? Those kind of sponsored playlists seem to indicate that there's at least some interest in doing that, but it's not really a PvE game because you can still take all of that loot into the PvP standard modes. There are some really neat PvE additions, like the upper labs in Complex in Dire Marsh Night is super cool. And again, I can't overstate like how awesome it actually is. But they haven't committed to that idea. It's still ultimately an extraction game at the end of the day. So I just don't think Marathon even knows what it wants to be right now. I
Hey,
think they're
Pharaoh.
trying everything and just seeing what sticks, seeing if anything moves the needle whatsoever. Despite a free weekend and all of these different modes that kind of go away from the original extraction formula they launched with, it's not really done anything, which is unfortunate because, again, I've said even in my other videos, it's a game that from its core and first principles I really like. If you think about Marathon as a box of Legos, just in its entirety, its gunplay, the actual weapons themselves, the aesthetic, the look, the vibe, the equipment, all of that stuff, just everything in its totality. If you think about that as a box of Legos, I
People
think
still
Bungie
forgetting
has a
that
great
current
set of Legos.
Bungie no longer have the devs that made Halo no Destiny 1.
Yeah, they're all basically gone. The original people who made those specific games are generally just gone in general. So that's the only reason why. That's the only reason why that at this point. Well, at this point, there is a video that I made or so about Bungie not being the same anymore. They're not the same. They are literally not the same people anymore. The people who created those games back then or so, they're not there anymore. They've been long gone for a while now. So, and that's why what we got now.
On their hand. But with Marathon, they've never been able to put them together in the right way. They've never put them together in a way that's extremely compelling or something that absolutely works. They've tried a bunch of different things, but they're, half-baked attempts, and they need to commit to a certain build because it would be wasteful to not do anything with the Legos, but at the same time, they've never put them together in a way that has worked for a lot of people. But what really inspired me to go back to Marathon and check out Season 2 was the fact that Bungie at the end of this month is allegedly going to be laying off about half of its staff with the end
Yep.
of Destiny 2
Yep.
happening, even though Destiny's reported very
Which they
strong
already
and healthy
did.
numbers in its final update, which is great, but that doesn't change the fact that, Sony is still moving forward with these plans to cut down Bungie quite a bit. I think some people have the misconception, and it's unfortunate because, the Destiny community is extremely passionate about keeping their game alive, and we've seen that with the player counts and how this update did. But, things are extremely bureaucratic when it comes to video game development. And when you're talking about companies this large, things move very slowly. And even though that, Destiny reported probably better numbers than they were even expecting, the ripple effects of that would probably not be seen for multiple years to come, if ever, really. So I'm glad Destiny had an amazing send-off, but that also leaves Marathon in a really strange position because I wonder if they're trying to get Destiny players on Marathon, and that's why they've made some of the choices they have with the updates and especially adding more PvE-oriented modes and things like that. I don't know, but either way, it doesn't really seem to have had the intended effect as far as I can tell. And to tell you the truth, I'm not sure what it would take to get people back on Marathon, but I also wonder, is there going to be any reason to? After playing Season 2, I'm pretty much over it now. Again, nothing to grind for, and I'm just not overly impressed by everything else with Season 2 outside of a couple little things. But really, I mean, it's a shame because, again, I like the Legos they have. They've just never put them together right, and I hope they can one day. I don't know if that will ever happen, especially with their staff being cut down significantly at the end of this month. It just doesn't bode well for the rest of it. But if you were curious about how Marathon was doing and wanted to see what Season 2 is like, or if you were missing anything, if you are more PvE oriented, you might find a few things that you actually like quite a bit more than maybe what you played in Season 1. But if not, I honestly don't think that Marathon Season 2 was anything spectacular or anything to write home about, honestly. My prediction is that over the next couple of months to potentially even the next year, Marathon is going to get updates that skew much more heavily in the direction of PvE. This might end up becoming the spiritual successor to Destiny in a way, where at least a lot of
Dude, there is no shot that they're gonna do that. That would be so fucking hilarious if it actually does do that, actually. Damn, dude. if they pivot towards PvE content, I'm not gonna lie, that'd be pretty fucking hilarious. I'd be honest with you. That would be pretty funny. Oh, dude. God, dude. Oh man, dude. Would I don't think people would actually pick this game up over Destiny though. They really won't actually. Because the thing is that Destiny, a lot of people love Destiny for Destiny.
Of the PVE oriented people that maybe were working on Destiny will find their way over to Marathon, and that will kind of
I don't I
rub
really
off
doubt
on
it.
this game. I think that they're probably going to pull away from the extraction stuff, or at least the heavy PvP stuff,
There's
a little bit.
no
And
way,
the reason for that is
dude.
they really have no other choice given the player base on it. Oh, another thing I did want to mention is that as I've been playing Season 2, the queue times for getting into games has been way longer than it ever was in Season 1. There's times where I can hardly find a lobby, even in like normal hours of the day. Like, and they also do this thing that's really annoying where they rotate Dire Marsh day and night in and out. Like, you can't play both at the same time. One gets locked while the other one opens up, and they're only unlocked for like an hour and a half. It's really annoying, honestly. I just wish that everything was unlocked all the time and I could play what I want to whenever I want to, whenever I want to
Nope.
jump into it. But I don't think they can do that because I don't think they
That's
have.
called that's to retain attention is sunk cost fallacy or so for you to stay. You need to stay or so for this long period of time until that map comes back. Basically, that's what they want to do. I always personally hated it personally because I personally just want to play a map that I'm mostly interested in. That's why I was never a huge fan of these like rotating maps in general. But like I said, that's just me anyways.
The player base to keep the queues healthy enough, so they have to shut things off to open other ones up to feed players into it. That's my theory anyways. I don't know. But either way, I don't think I'm going to be playing very much more Season 2. I don't have any reason to play anymore. I've already done
Yikes.
everything at this point, so I don't expect Season 3 to be much better, but I guess we'll have to wait and see, especially after all the shakeup at Bungie that's coming. So maybe I'll keep an eye on it, maybe not. We'll see. But anyways, I just wanted to talk about it. I'll see you guys in the next one.
Jesus, that doesn't sound very good at what's happening right there, to be honest. Yikes.
Every
But
single time.
But like I said, I'm just kind of like, this is, they should have, if, like I said, they should have just made the game differently. They should have made it into a single player game because I bet there were a lot of people who played the original Marathon was probably interested of seeing Marathon coming back, but when they said it was an extraction shooter, well, that's just like everyone just flipped their table or so for it, you know? And then people who didn't get the chance to play the original one, you know, can actually play this new one and have this new experience of Marathon and hopefully get a new, a new audiences. But instead, they decided to do this and not make a single player game because everyone praises Bungie for their great single player game. So far, I haven't seen anything like that. That's all I gotta say about it. Everyone keeps saying, "Oh, they make great single player games. Their stories are great and everything." I'm like, I think that's been thrown out the window at this point. So, well, yeah. Anyways, that's the end of the video. You guys can comment, like, subscribe, do all that fancy, jazzy stuff. Well, we'll see what happens. To be honest, we'll see what happens afterwards when it comes to like the content update too, as well. Because we all know for a fact now in this day and age, when it comes to like people developing stuff, they need more time to develop apparently compared to the old ways or so back in the early 2000s and 90s and everything. You had small teams, but they were very efficient and made actual like content and updates, not updates but like content wise of video games. But now it's just kind of like, well, they take longer to make stuff now. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, anyways, that's the end of the video. And peace.